In a pooled analysis of 2,107 American adults using pedometers, researchers found that participants had an average of 7,271 daily steps with a standard deviation of 1,533 steps. We'll use the normal distribution statistical tool to answer the following questions. According to Dr. Pamela E, a professor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, a 10,000 step goal became popular in Japan in the 1960s. We want to estimate the proportion of adults who reach the recommended 10,000 steps per day or more. So let's go ahead and use Find Probability tab. We'll enter in our average, so 7,271, and then the standard deviation was 1,533. And now we want to find those who are getting the recommended steps or more. So we're doing an upper tail with a value of X being 10,000. And so that proportion ends up being 0.0375. So that's this percentage we see, 3.75, but we turn it into a proportion. Let's look at the next one. The Mayo Clinic suggests that the average American walks 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day. According to the mean and standard deviation found in the pooled analysis, what proportion of Americans walk between 3,000 and 4,000 steps per day? Well, in that case, we're going to turn to the type of probability being an interval. The lower value is going to be 3,000, and the upper value is going to be 4,000. And in that case, we notice that the percentage we see is 1.38. So we got to turn that into a proportion. So that'll become 0.0138. Now, why do we think that the Mayo Clinic results are so different? Well, they're looking first off at different sets of people, but also in part A, we were looking at those people who are getting a lot of steps in per day. Whereas here we're looking at those that are getting very specifically between 3,000 and 4,000. So we shouldn't expect that those proportions are going to be identical. Let's look at this other study. So a 2004 study of 45 Amish Canadians, the researchers found that the participants averaged 14,196 steps per day. We want to find and interpret the percentile for the average number of daily steps taken by the participants of this study. So let's see, in comparison to the previous and initial study, how well our Amish friends are doing. So in this case, we're going to input their average number of steps, 14,196. And let's see how they're doing. So I'm going to do a lower tail. And it changed my number here. Let's try again, 14,196. And look at this. They're basically doing better than 100% of all the initial participants. So as a proportion, that means that we have a value of 1 here. And how we interpret those results is that the Amish participants are, let's say, the Amish participants in this study are averaging more steps than basically everyone in the initial study. Now I'll just fix my typos. Participants, than basically everyone in that initial study. So that's what this 1 represents there. Now this final part asks us the following. Kamiko claims that she walks less than 90% of adult Americans. How many steps per day on average would Kamiko need to walk for her claim to be true? In this case, let's go ahead and use the Find Percentile tab. Now the claim is that they walk very little. So we're going to do a lower tail. Sorry, an upper tail, because we want 90% of people to walk more than Kamiko. So upper tail, we want 90% to the right of that. So if Kamiko is walking less than 90% of American adults, then they have to be walking between 0 and up to 5,306 steps. So if we select an answer, we want less than the biggest possible amount, which is 5,306 steps.